College, University of Delhi. And my optional is public administration, and my hobby is fruit plant cultivation and cricket.
Fruit plant cultivation and cricket.
Yes.
Tell us a little more about your family, the background.
So,
Parents.
my father is a coolie and he has some agriculture activities also with that, sir. And my mother is a housewife itself. And I'm from that rural village of Kavanur in Malappuram district.
So, does your parents have their own land, a house that they own?
So, they have a house, but the land is very much limited. They do their agriculture activities in sharecropping, that leasing the land for 3 months or 6 months in that way.
You have any siblings?
No, sir, I am the only child.
Only child. Okay. Good. Please sir.
Ajith, I find you have taken a very early plunge into this dream career of being in the civil services. You are just about 23.
Yes.
Just out of college and...
Yes, sir. This is my first attempt.
Then this is your
UPSC.
first attempt, and really good. We appreciate.
Thank you, sir.
You've graduated from Hindu College in Political Science.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me something about drawing parallels between Chanakya and Machiavelli?
So, both have both Chanakya and Machiavelli has dealt about the state and the administration elaborately, sir. And both of them have worked in a princely state that is not a democratically elected government. But both of them dealt about the functions or the role of a king and role of an administrator in the official government or bureaucratic setups. And both the Chanakya said about the king whose happiness is the happiness of its people. And Chanakya also, Machiavelli also told about a wise ruler.
Wise ruler, okay. Do you think Chanakya's policies are relevant to modern times, contemporary? In what sense would you draw parallels in contemporary bureaucracy, let's say?
So, Chanakya's ideas or his ideas about bureaucracy and state are still relevant in the modern administrative setups. Firstly, he dealt about ethics in administration, that the king should be moral to or accountable to his people, that there is two heads for an administration, that is private head and public heads, though this implies the separation of power. Secondly, he also dealt about the corruptions in administration, and he said about 47 kinds of embezzlement in administration, that is still in the Prevention of Corruption Act of India.
Added to the list now from 47?
So, there are 7.
Have we added to the list?
Have we added to the list? That's the question.
And thirdly, he also, there is a hierarchy in administration and also dealt about the kind of punishments and also promotions in administration that is still relevant in the modern case.
Okay, and there is a statement that he makes somewhere, straight trees are cut first. Straight trees are cut first. So, do you think that being ethical, being straight always pays, for instance, you are an honest, very forthcoming, highly ethical bureaucrat. Do you think it pays in the long run?
So,
or you have to be street smart and be a survivor, flourish in chaos, as they say?
So, I think
what role would you assign yourself to?
So, I think a bureaucrat should be a mix of both, that he should be smart at the same time ethics or he need ethics into the larger hierarchy in administration and also to the larger public interest. He should aware of the rights and his responsibilities to the larger public interest and his duty to the nation.
What are Kerala's pressing social and economic problems right now? And as a bureaucrat, potential aspiring bureaucrat, how would you face these challenges and opportunities?
So, there are some socio-economic challenges that Kerala now faces. In the economic terms, the economic condition of the state is itself have some crisis that reduced revenue for the state after the COVID pandemic and introduction of GST. and also the industrial aspect of Kerala is not in a good stage comparing to its service economy, sir. And in the social aspect, this unemployment crisis itself leading to a kind of brain drain, and people are migrating to out of Kerala or out of India, sir. And secondly, there is a problem of that radicalization of youth is also a prominent issue that the administration has to deal with, sir. And my priorities would be to create.
If you were an administrator, how will you tackle this issue of brain drain, as you call it? People are leaving in droves. None of our next gen students seem interested in pursuing courses in universities in Kerala. What can you do to bring back the past glory?
So we need a comprehensive strategy to address this issue, sir.
Higher education, I am talking of higher education.
Yes, sir. In that higher education, we need to have some good universities with more attractive courses that is still relevant for the coming period. That is Industry 4.0, such as AI and robotics, sir. And recently, there is a proposal from the state government itself to attract foreign universities and foreign capital in these universities, sir. And secondly, we have to provide them good infrastructure and quality life in Kerala itself. That we need good road connectivity as well as rail connectivity, and the recent project of Kerala governments, that K-Rail or Silver Line, is itself a good model for that.
Would you subscribe to the dream of having a semi-high speed train in this part of the country?
So Kerala.
Why? You can already if you have achieved speeds of 120, 130. Why don't we consolidate our existing infrastructure?
So firstly, the railway infrastructure in Kerala has itself some problems, sir. Firstly, it has 600 bends in the entire stretch from Kasaragod to Trivandrum, sir. And secondly, the speed of the railway is around 45 to 55, when in other state it is more than double, sir. So this is the case of railway infrastructure in Kerala.
But why do you want to invest in a highly capital intensive venture like Silver Line, bringing a greenfield, a totally new alignment, when you can might as well strengthen that? And then we have heard about Vande Bharat trains now. Vande Bharat trains can be introduced, straighten the bends, or go in for a third line without acquiring land, without acquiring too much of land.
So
Land acquisition, do you recommend to this theory of massive displacement of families to serve this cause?
So massive displacement of families and the large social cost of such a big project is a cause of concern. But at the same time, a state or a country that is aspiring to be developed in the next 25 years need huge capital investment and projects like this, which are aspiring for the youth itself in the next coming years.
What is unique about Vizhinjam, the other mega project?
So, Vizhinjam has some features that it is the only mother port in India where the big ships can come, sir. And it can be one of the maritime ports where the international shipping lane can converge, and it can act as a substitute for other Sri Lankan ports itself, sir.
Substitute.
Yes.
Okay. What are who are the competitors for Vizhinjam?
So, some Sri Lankan port, I could not recollect its names.
What is the problem in Sri Lanka from a political viewpoint? You are a student of political science. What happened in Sri Lanka?
So, the Sri Lankan economic crisis is a combination of multiple aspects, sir. Firstly, the COVID-19 itself has reduced the coming of tourists, which was one of the important revenue source of Sri Lanka, sir. Secondly, the sudden imposition of the ban of chemical fertilizer, and that reduced the agriculture productivity of Sri Lanka. And thirdly, there were lacking a kind of political stability because of multiple reasons. That is, ethnic crisis between different groups is the third factor. And fourthly, the huge debt, it has also acted as a deterrent for newer investment to the country itself.
There is a recently an alliance, a military alliance, or you can say a strategic alliance was formed between Australia, UK and America. Do you think that a fourth pillar can be added to that? Can India chip in?
So, considering the alliance in Indo-Pacific region, India has already part of the Quad alliance, that the quadrilateral security alliance that include Australia, Japan and US already, sir. So, I don't think a new alliance is needed in that way. And also in the case of AUKUS, India has also a concern that it will lead to the militarization of Indo-Pacific, from which India has put its leg out of that, sir. India is not in favor of militarizing the Indo-Pacific region that the AUKUS is currently going for. So, in that aspect, I think it is not good for joining India in such a military alliance itself.
What are your extracurricular activities, Ajith?
So, my primary hobby is that fruit plant cultivation.
Fruit plant cultivation. What is this Miyawaki forest?
So, I have limited knowledge on that topic. They are effectively pruned forests that we can grow in small spaces, and it need only 30 to 30 feet space in between two trees, and we can grow a large number of trees in small.
Have you experimented? Have you come across any?
So, it's a mini form of that I have experienced in my home garden, that we have only limited space. So, in that space we have to cultivate multiple kinds of fruits. So, we regularly, me and my father regularly prune them in every year to reduce their length or reduce their heights.
Sir.
Thank you, sir.
You have a fascinating journey from Mancheri to Delhi,
Yes.
Delhi University. What was the motivation for you to leave Kerala educational sector and go over to the capital and join Hindu college and do political science? What was the driving factor?
So, it has multiple motivations, sir. Firstly, the higher education that the Delhi University provides is itself in high standard, that the faculty and the infrastructure, sir. And a university outside Kerala will also provide me opportunity to mingle with other cultures in India and understand the diversity of the nation itself, sir. And as a third push factor is that the higher education standards in Kerala has to develop much more better to attract the youth in the coming years, sir. And fourthly, a personal reason that when I completed my 10th standard, I found that many civil servants are also coming from Delhi University and they have their graduation or post-graduation in Delhi University. At that time, I thought that it would be also a good factor for me as a career in civil servants. But I later found that not only Delhi University but also good effort and our smart work is also needed in that way.
What was the reason for you choosing civil services? Like, why did you choose it over your passion of horticulture or on the agricultural side? You wanted to become a civil servant and you have succeeded almost to a certain extent. So, what was the reason for that?
So,
Did you have a role model, or did you look at some people, or did you look at the opportunities that has come in your way? What was the reason for that?
So, civil service is one of the best career option or service option the country currently has, and it will provide multiple opportunity to understand India and work for it with a huge responsibilities as part of government. That itself is I think a good service to the people of the nation, sir. And especially in the next 25 years, a civil servant can contribute enormously to the nation. And in the case of choosing civil service or horticulture or any other hobby, that I can manage this horticulture or any other hobby even while I am in civil service also, sir.
No, I think one interesting question I would like to ask is that can you give the name of a mythological ruler whose ruling is celebrated every year in our state?
So that mythological that Maveli.
Exactly, good. And what is the relationship with the Alberuni and Malabar?
I am unaware of it.
Okay. He was the person who had initially used the name Malabar for that area of land that is there. Can you speak something about social governance? Social governance. The kings do it. Maybe as a district collector, you will have to do it later. What is your concept or view of social governance?
Sir, I could not think about it.
You guess an answer. You try to understand from the words social governance. What would be social governance? Try to give an answer.
So, the governance system where we have to bring all the people into the administration and look to every aspect of that. We have to bring marginalized section to that area, and there need brotherhood between different communities. This multiple social factors, alignment of multiple joint factors in governance, I can think.
What do you understand about the history of the rulers of Travancore?
So Travancore has a royal family where that they have some good rulers such as Marthandavarma or Sri Chitra Tirunal, who enormously contributed to the medical and education infrastructure in that areas. And that is one of the reason for the motivation of Kerala government after independence to focus on this education and health and social aspects.
Do you know anything of the noon school, the noon school meal, noon school, noon meal?
No, midday meals.
Midday meals in schools and all. Who introduced that first?
So Tamil Nadu government has introduced this midday meals in mid 1990s, and later the central government also adopted and promoted this all over the country, and it become a situation changer or a primary motive for many of the students in the marginalized area of India to come to schools, at least in the initial time for this getting these meals. But later government has also increased this funding, and now it is also part of our nutritional security to the younger generations of India, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So Ajith, see this Constitution of India, it was written like how many years back?
So around 73 years back.
73 years back. So it was written at a time when the world was different. Even school syllabus we keep on changing. In such an important document, we are still following such an old document and struggling in all spheres of political and economic life. Don't you think it should be scrapped and a new constitution should be written?
So I don't think it is necessary, since Indian constitution is said as a living document, and the constitution itself has provided for multiple avenues to change its provision whenever the government or the parliament feel that it is some provisions of it are not relevant in the present world, that there is article 368. Sir, so in that aspect I think there is no need of complete scrapping. But if there is any provision that is not relevant in the present world, the parliament can think of amending them, that there is an amending power to the constitutions, while keeping this basic structure or basic features of the constitution intact.
So you think the constitution is a dynamic entity? It is ever evolving?
So Indian constitution is ever evolving while keeping this basic features.
There has been some very serious allegations or concerns that the federal aspect of the Indian constitution is being taken on a roll and centralization is coming into picture more and more. What is your take on that?
So there is a concern that there is growing centralization in India, but I don't in that aspect there are some concerns, like there is growing cess and surcharge in the case of economic revenue of government, that has increased from the 10% of total central government revenue from 23%, and also there is one nation one election in the case of GST in that aspect. But at the same time the federal features are also there, such as recently the government approved that GST council approved a GST council appellate tribunal, and also there are institutions such as 𝐏𝐚𝐢𝐧𝐬 that promote federalism in India. So even though there are some challenges, we have still have a good or dynamic or federal relation in the countries.
There is so much of centralization of power, and government of India is walking into the spheres of concurrent list and state list. For example, the cooperative sector. So what is your take on cooperative sector? What is happening there?
So through 97th Constitutional Amendment Act, the government has come in the case of multi-state cooperative societies, and also in the case of state cooperative societies. But recently in the Supreme Court judgment, that the judgment provided that the central government could not interfere in the case of state cooperative societies, but in the case of multi-state cooperative societies. But at the same time, there is I think the constitution itself provide a federal structure which no central government or state government can act on them after a certain extent. India has still a robust federal structure.
Okay. No, see, there is another factor which is being in the rise in India. It's like blunt nationalism. People simply believe that nationalism and patriotism is the core of everything. But in this globalized world, do you think it has any value?
So, nationalism and patriotism has still its relevance, since it will encourage the generations to work for the nation and also contribute the nation by we can be a good taxpayer in the country that will generate the resources for the marginalized sections, and also we can be accountable to our fellow citizens. In that aspect, I think nationalism and patriotism is good. But at the same time, comparing to other countries, we are still have a focus on our neighborhood, that we have shared our vaccines with the less poor or emerging countries in the neighborhood, and also we are providing our militaries or army to help in Turkey. So in that aspect, even though there is nationalism or patriotism, we are not confining ourselves to the nation or its boundaries. We are helping other nations too, sir.
Rabindranath Tagore is known as a global citizen. What was his concept of nationalism?
So, Sri Tagore believed in internationalism, that there is no need of there is need excessive nationalism, but we have global citizenship or brotherhood between all the citizens of the world.
So, technology is bringing that more into the forefront, right? So, where is the question of being an Indian or being an American? It is all becoming very grey, right?
So, after all, we need a kind of identity, that there need one government to protect us, or there need one government to protect the marginalized sections of the society. So, in that aspect, I think nationalism and patriotism and citizenship are still relevant.
Okay. You talked about radicalization of youth before. So, why do you say there is so much of radicalization of youth in Kerala?
So, there is evidence that there are so many youth has joined in IS or other terrorist organization in that region, that the conflict prone West Asian regions. That's why I told that.
But then Kerala, you have not only right wing extremism, Hinduism is also there, and all kinds of right wing activities are there. So, why do you specifically say radicalization of youth? Is it because a few youth joined one of these organizations, or is this a general trend, or is it a minority issue? What is it?
So, it is a cause of concern as a nation, as the larger public interest, since it will reduce the focus of the youth to their using their energy for the larger nation, and also it is not good for a nation in the coming years, that their youth are focusing on this kind of terrorist activities that will itself make problems for the existence of the nation itself.
And also you said there is a lack of employment opportunities in your state, but very funnily around 23,000 crores is the amount of money which is being going to other states by the migrant laborers who are working in your state. So, why is your youth not being part of that ecosystem, economic system?
So, the youth in Kerala has high skills, that they have higher qualification in terms of their graduation or in terms of their higher education, sir. But at the same time, the jobs available here are not up to the mark to their expectation or to their qualification, that they have high skills in terms of AI or in computer or in service sector. But the migrant population who are earning from Kerala is mostly from semi-skilled or unskilled labour, sir.
So, there is a mismatch between what they learn and what is the job opportunity available. So, as an administrator, how do you plan to change the scenario?
So, firstly, we can focus on the industrial sector, where the Kerala has traditionally lacking, sir, and there we can create some infrastructure in the MSME area where the state can concentrate. And secondly, new areas such as AI can also be concentrated as startup missions, and also info parks and kinfo parks that have already in 4 places in Kerala. So, in that aspect.
Again, you are focusing on technology. By the migrant laborers are doing skilled work in construction and other areas. So, are you not going to focus on that?
So, I think if the qualification are higher, that our people can, or the citizens or the workers in Kerala can concentrate on these sectors as this skilled labor area, and the migrant population can work on the other areas.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, Ajith, what is the difference between Middle East and West Asia?
So, in my limited knowledge, Middle East is a group of countries in that Arabian Peninsula, that Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, in those countries. West Asia is a larger area of Asia where the Israel, that Iran, in that all as countries.
Isn't it more about where you stand and your perspective geographically? Middle East of what? If you are looking from India, then it's not Middle East. Middle East for us would be Singapore, or somewhere in Indonesia. So you tended to suggest that these are two not necessarily identical areas, but they have separate geographical identities. Is that really so? Or are these terminologies purely a Western perspective which calls that area Middle East, while from India, when we look at it, it is for us West Asia?
So I think I have to read it further, sir, to clarify.
Okay. It's an important area for our foreign policy, especially for a state like Kerala. But what is it that has held us back in the past from engaging with all these countries, whether you call it Middle East or West Asia, in a far more intensive manner? Do you see a political factor which has held us back from engaging with these countries, treating them purely as a place for exporting our labor?
So I think there are multiple factors for that low engagement, sir. Firstly, India is itself concentrating on its other areas such as East or the near neighborhood area in the past. And now the foreign policy or Indian government try to focus more on this West Asia, and there is active, robust West Asian policy and Central Asian policy is there, sir. And secondly, there is conflict or there is tension between this nation, that the Shia Muslim countries and there is Sunni Muslim countries. To both, India has good relation. So this is also the second issue, sir. And thirdly, there are so much players are actively engaged in that area, such as there is US interference from decade to decades, and there is Russian interference in Afghanistan in that time. So it is a more conflict prone area in the past decades, and now there is much more stability in that aspect, and India is concentrating, have a dehyphenated foreign policy in terms of Israel and Palestine, and also a good foreign relation with UAE and other countries, UAE and Israel, through a new code, that is I2U2, that India, Israel and United Nations and United States and UAEs.
Did we see this area through the Pakistani prism in terms of their relationship with Pakistan, and was that a factor in holding us back in meaningful relationships with these countries?
So that would be the other probable reason, that they are all Muslim countries and part of that that organization of Muslim countries. But currently they have not a good relation, or India try to balance Pakistan in international fora through this other Muslim majority countries.
What about recent Indian presidency of G20? How would you assess its importance for India in the world?
So this G20 is an enormous opportunity for India to show its democracy and diversity to the world, sir. And secondly, this can be used as an opportunity to become India as the leader of the global south, since the points or the area where India is focusing now are climate change and the development of the emerging or southern south countries, sir. So in that aspect, it will provide huge opportunity for India as a leader in the international fora. And thirdly, this G20 can also be used to reform the international forums such as United Nations Security Council or UN itself in the larger perspectives. And fourthly, this can also be used as a potential growth of India, since we are conducting tourism initiatives in different parts of India that recently conducted in the Kumaragam area of Kottayam district in Kerala, and today it is conducting in West Bengal. So it is also an opportunity to show our strength to the international communities.
How exactly do you think G20 can help with, say, United Nations reforms? Can it really do so?
So, firstly, comparing to UNSC, this G20 has a wider membership and it has the majority of the major countries in the world. Sir. So, a unity in their opinion can also influence the opinions in UNSC. And unlike the UNSC, where the members has veto power, there is no such mechanism in G20. So there will more concerns are there and more representation are there. So it will help us to make more this UNSC more representative and more accountable in the future. Sir.
But at the ministerial level meetings in India, they were not able to agree on even a joint statement. So do you see greater opportunities for consensus within G20 on important critical issues?
So even though the finance ministers meeting on this finance ministers and external affairs ministers meeting has failed to come with a joint statement, I don't think it has a failure of the G20 or the presidency of India's G20, sir, because there are a growing Russia-Ukraine war in the world, and also there is growing divergence between the West and the Russia-led countries. Sir. So that is the primary reason for a lack of joint statement. But at the same time, India has come up with a chair note, and it has dealt efficiently with other countries in other aspects such as climate change, cryptocurrency, international market in that aspect. So I think overall this is a success, and where India can make more effective deliberations and actions in the coming 5 to 6 months.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Now we move over to giving you feedback. So my colleague,
Ajith, you are a very come across as a very confident candidate, very pleasant demeanor, your way of communicating, very, quite fluent in your thoughts, in your cogency, logic, everything is quite appealing, and your ability to analyze things, its pluses and pros and cons, and arrive at conclusions are quite very well appreciated. And even in situations where they try to counter you, you could come up with clear, cogent answers. So that's a huge plus, obviously a huge plus. All I request you to do it, couple of points which or felt, perhaps others may also agree with me. One is the modulation part of it. You tend to, your thought process is you process very fast, very quick. You think quickly on your feet. It may work well in many occasions, no doubt. But in an interview situation, perhaps you may have to give a more calibrated, measured kind of response. Okay. You seem to race through your responses. Okay. Maybe a bit more of modulation is required. Pace your answers, and then you tend to probably sometimes ramble on. In that. So it gives an impression that you are talking hell of a lot. That rather than do that, stick and present yourself in your responses as more objective in your answers. Modulate your voice a bit. Okay. I think sometimes it gives a feeling that you have scripted this whole thing and then responding. Even right from the introduction stage, I felt something like that it was a very, very measured, tailored script that you read up and then you are reeling out. It should not be that way. Yeah. Somewhere you used one nation, one election in a context. It was one.
It's a mistake.
One collection.
One nation.
GST.
One tax.
One tax. Yeah. In the GST context. Yes. So those slip-ups can be avoided, perhaps. The skill building part of it was quite appreciative. The question itself was very, very good, very valid question for our times. Can we afford to have a space there in this ecosystem that siphons out 20,000 crores? So I don't know. The answers perhaps lie in skill building and looking at better carpenters, better plumbers, masons who can work well. Can there be, rather than have a host of engineering colleges spread across the length and breadth of the country without, rather in the state, with most of the seats going in private sector colleges, you'll find seats not getting filled up. Can we think of a more industry fit and employable kind of workforce, readying people with maybe a diploma in infrastructure engineering, let's say, which is interdisciplinary, which captures the all the. Do you think Kerala needs more finishing schools kind of thing? Let look at those aspects also perhaps.
Okay.
And then the other factors in like manufacturing, what are our opportunities? Maybe in food processing. Emerging technologies, you only harped on one theme, which was AI. AI is only part of an emerging technology. No? So what about blockchain, what about IoT, what about robotics, industrial robotics, what about drones? Do we have a space? Perhaps if you can list out those things, it will perhaps bring in a bit more of depth into the analysis. Otherwise, I find the entire narrative, I mean the experience has been quite wonderful.
Okay.
You're a very, very promising candidate. With a bit more of fine tuning, I think you can easily get an exceptional score, going beyond a par score.
Okay.
All the best.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
This vibrancy and clarity was evident.
Yes.
The vibrancy and clarity was evident. A little bit more relaxed, demeanor and spaced narration, like you mentioned, would add to the total larger impact that you have created. You have created a very good impression.
Okay.
Basically, impression you created was very well prepared, well read, with substantial database to substantiate your answers. That is the impression that has come across.
Okay.
But while answering, try to include more minute details of the data which you come, so that the discussions will look more complete by itself. Okay. Now it's all like short answers. Objective type question, objective type answer. You can add a little bit more data and little bit more objective about descriptive element into it, so it will look a more complete answer on those things. Then you had a lot of information. The information is well organized also, but the presentation can be on a manner which would be more impressive.
Okay.
But you have done extremely well, like a show of fire candidate for the interview. Only thing is that a little bit more refining, little bit more on the relaxed side, and the pacing of the conversation on the answers can be done.
Okay.
Because the committee would expect you to have a reasoned answer. So the body language also should exhibit a mode of reasoning that happens within you, and it is almost like question instantaneous answer. A small microsecond or a minute gap before answering, a little bit of thoughtfulness in your facial expression and in your voice would make the massive difference. And we are very happy that you have done an extremely good preparation, and I am sure that you would have read umpteen interviews which the candidates would have taken while going to the UPSC, that are only informative. Don't take it to the heart too much, and don't go too much by the advices. You should take those advices which you read in the how to attend an interview, what are the facts that has to be done, what are the preparations to be made, that you modulate to suit your personality. Moderate to suit your personality, and then you come forward, so you look like a more genuine and more lively and vibrant you are. This, no doubt you are, but this can be more refined, so it will be more sophisticated, because you can really aim up the top 10, sort of the top 10% of the interview, what you can aim at. So these things will make a larger thing. You can also try to add in some information probably which is not known to large people, because midday midday meal scheme, historically and now from the database, people say it's from the terminology, it is there. But Travancore kings have done it first actually. So you can read it up. I am not able to really place my finger on that, whether it is Rana Sedu or the princess after that. But she was the first person who has done the midday meal scheme pioneered it. So you just check it up. Check that up from the history point of view, and then you will be able to get it. So that type of small smatterings of unique data would seal your positive outcome of the interview. Go for the highest slot. So be relaxed. Now what you need to do is that prepare yourself physically and mentally, do your meditation, do your physical exercises, and be sharp and so as smart as possible. All the best.
Thanks.
Ajith, your analytical skills are very good, and the answer you told for why you went to Delhi and all, that is very nice. I mean, that is very nice answer. I mean, nobody, see, the interviewer never expects that answer, and he came up with that. And when I asked you about that constitution, it is that you made your answer that it's dynamic. So that was good. So your answer, your analytics, your way of answering everything is perfect. Only thing, as sirs were saying, it needs more sophistication. After going, you start speeding it up. You know, it's like a train going faster and faster.
You are like a silver line.
Silver line. No, you don't fumble, but the thing is the interviewer starts feeling, oh, this guy is gone on talking. You know, you need to bring in sophistication. Don't get lost in your thoughts. I think you're a little bit getting lost in that whole thing. One small thing, anyway, now you can't do anything. Your father is a headload worker.
No, that is coolie in English, that may mean that, but it's daily wage work.
No, the thing is, see, coolie is a term which was used by the Britishers as an indigenous law. It has its own, of course, but thing is, you have written it now, we can't help it. And also, in between, you told, I am coming from a rural village. So, don't create an impression saying that you are trying to bag on that, saying that you are grown from that level. Don't say, make it feel that. When you explain, you can always say, my father is a daily wage worker. Then they might ask why you wrote coolie. Sir, I thought that was a name, that's it. But you don't say the word coolie. You can say he's a daily wage worker. And also he does farming, right? Because in one place you send farmer and this thing. You say that specifically, okay? Be careful about that. And don't go on saying that you came from a rural area, my father is cool. Then people will feel, okay, this guy is trying to be on that. Then other things, and Kerala, you need to learn a little more. You talked about SME simply like that. What is SME? I mean, what SME is there? What is happening? And then you are talking, everything you are converted into an IT, AI, doesn't end there. That itself is not a solution. And so much of labor is available here, then why people are going abroad? Your answer is okay, that is the psychology. But as an administrator, what you will do? That answer was not coming. Basically, you need to have skill development done, and all this labor work has to be made as skilled labor works and upskill them. And also the nature of work is also changing. You could always say even construction industry is changing. It's not like normal labor work anymore. You have a lot of technology tools and everything. So if a graduate is properly trained in all those technology tools and all, he can be part of this. So you have to frame your answer. And Kerala also, you said about kings and all, they did this, some names, and you need to learn about that, who did what and all.
Malabar Samoans അവരുടെ ഡൈനാസ്റ്റി ആ കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ അതിൻ്റെ സോഷ്യോ എക്കണോമിക് ഹിസ്റ്ററി പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് പഠിക്കണം. അപ്പോൾ മലബാറിൻ്റെയും ട്രാവൻകൂറിൻ്റെയും ഹിസ്റ്ററി, ബിക്കോസ് ബോർഡിൻ്റെ പൊതുവെ ആണെങ്കിൽ നമുക്ക് നമ്മളെക്കുറിച്ച് അറിയാമോ, നമ്മുടെ പേരൻസിൻ്റെ ജോലിയെക്കുറിച്ച് അറിയാമോ, നമ്മുടെ ദേശത്തെക്കുറിച്ച് അറിയാമോ, ദേശത്ത് ഫേസ് ചെയ്യുന്ന പ്രോബ്ലംസിൽ റൂട്ടഡ് ആണോ, അത് റീസണബിളായിട്ട് എഡ്യൂക്കേറ്റഡ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ആൾ സമകാലികമായിട്ട് അറിയേണ്ട കാര്യങ്ങളെക്കുറിച്ച് ബോധമുണ്ടോ, ആ ബോധത്തെക്കുറിച്ച് നമ്മുടെ കാഴ്ചപ്പാട് എന്താണ്, ആ കാഴ്ചപ്പാട് നമുക്ക് എന്ത് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും, ഈ ഒരു കണ്ടിന്യൂറ്റിയാണ് നമ്മുടെ ആൻസേഴ്സിൽ റിഫ്ലക്ട് ചെയ്ത് തരണം. അപ്പോൾ ഈ ഒരു സ്ട്രോങ് ബേസിസ് ഉണ്ടാവും. യു ആർ ദെയർ, ബട്ട് ലൈക്ക് യു മെൻഷൻഡ്, അതൊന്ന് എല്ലാം കൂടി ഒന്ന് ഒരു കൂട്ടിച്ചേർത്ത് നല്ല രീതിയിൽ പ്രിപ്പയർ ചെയ്യണം.
പിന്നെ സ്റ്റാൻഡ് ഔട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്ന രാഹുൽ പറഞ്ഞ പോലെ കൂലി എന്നുള്ളൊരു ഇത് വരുമ്പോൾ ഒരു പക്ഷേ ഇത് ടേക്സ് ഓഫ് ഓൺ എ ടാൻജൻറ്റ്. മുൽക്രാജ് ആനന്ദിൻ്റെ ഒരു വർക്കുണ്ട്, അപ്പോൾ അതിലേക്ക് ചിലപ്പോൾ കടക്കും. അതൊക്കെ ഒന്ന് be prepared. Recently the board's trend is to read out the DAF aloud. The chairman will pick up the DAF and sometimes read out. Some boards are doing it. So there is a recency effect amongst the board members. So they catch hold of those words. So
you should be prepared.
You should be prepared for that.
This thing of coolie, because it is not something you come across normally.
Nobody writes that.
And it has all kinds of implications. In South Africa, the word coolie was used against Mahatma Gandhi as an insulting, as an insult, because if all Indians are coolies, kind of. So it's got all kinds of implications. So
it can take off.
And since it is there in this, you be prepared to smoothen the rough edge of that very strong word.
No other biodata, you can be sure, will have that word. People will say worker or this thing, but nobody writes that. So you might get a question, then it go on in a different level, as sir was saying.
Be very prepared for those eventually. Follow out.
അത് ലോഞ്ചിങ് പാഡ് യൂസ് ചെയ്തിട്ട് പോസിറ്റീവായിട്ട് ഉപയോഗിക്കുക. അത് യു കൺവേർട്ട് ദാറ്റ് ഇൻ an opportunity to say something very impressive.
In fact, that word is what prompted me to ask you to talk about your family background and so on, which I would not normally ask a candidate. About Travancore, I don't know if you have read this book called Ivory Throne.
Partially എത്തിയിട്ടില്ല.
Partially, please.
അതിലുണ്ട് ആ പുസ്തകത്തിലെ മിഡ് ഡേ മീലിൻ്റെ സ്കീം.
You should read if you want to know about Travancore. Of course, it's a controversial book in terms of this side of the family, that side of the family, and so on. But that doesn't matter. You will get so much facts about what
പക്ഷേ
how the
നമുക്കിപ്പോൾ
place.
ഈ കഴിഞ്ഞ ഒരു മാസം ഒരുപാട് പുസ്തകങ്ങൾ വാങ്ങിക്കാനായിട്ടുള്ള സമയം കിട്ടത്തില്ല. അപ്പോൾ അതിൻ്റെ ജസ്റ്റ് കിട്ടും. ജസ്റ്റ് നോക്കിയിട്ട് അതുപോലെ പൊളിറ്റിക്കൽ സയൻസിൽ തന്നെ ട്രീറ്റീസ് ഒക്കെ ഉണ്ട്, സെമിനൽ വർക്ക്സ് ഉണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ അതിനെക്കുറിച്ചിട്ടുള്ള പുസ്തകങ്ങളാണ് ആര് എഴുതിയത്, അതിൻ്റെ അകത്ത് എന്തൊക്കെയാണ് പ്രധാനമായിട്ടുള്ള കാര്യം, അതൊന്ന് ബ്രഷപ്പ് ചെയ്യണം. അത് ഡിസ്കഷൻസ് വരാണെങ്കിൽ.
And also you need to learn about this Cheras, Cholas and all those things. Because now in North India also they are seeing that movies and everything. And then there is this controversy with the Padmanabhaswamy temple and the gold. So this Travancore princely states and their political this thing. Since you are political science also, and also you need to know about Cochin and Malabar, what happened during that independence struggle. All those things you have to be very careful. They might ask, then you can get good marks also. And don't talk about this radicalization of youth. It's so sensitive, and you just can't say minority is radicalized, others are not. Otherwise, you have to be politically correct in what you are going to say. Just can't say.
ന്യൂട്രൽ ആയിരിക്കാവുന്നതാണ്. നമ്മുടെ ഒബ്സർവേഷൻസോ കമൻസോ ജഡ്ജ്മെൻറ്റ്സോ ഒന്നും വരാത്ത രീതിയിൽ
അത് പറയാതിരിക്കുന്ന
മെൻഷൻ ചെയ്യാതിരിക്കാന്നല്ല. കോൺട്രവേഴ്ഷ്യൽ ആയിട്ട് ടോപ്പിക്സ് ഒന്ന് ഗ്ലാൻസ് ചെയ്തിട്ട് പോകുന്ന രീതിയിൽ പറയുന്നതായിരിക്കും. പക്ഷേ ഈ പറഞ്ഞ കാര്യങ്ങൾ പ്രത്യേകം ശ്രദ്ധിക്കും. വാങ്ങിക്കാനുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങൾ വായിച്ചു നോക്കിയിട്ട്.
But you will do very well, and should we go in with the confidence that you are going to
അജിത്ത്
make it.
മനസ്സിലാക്കുന്ന കാര്യം യു ആർ ദെയർ. എത്രത്തോളം മുകളിലേക്ക് പോകാൻ പറ്റുമെന്നുള്ള തീരുമാനം എടുക്കേണ്ട. സോ ഹൗ ഹയർ യു ക്യാൻ റീച്ച്, അതിലേക്കുള്ള വർക്ക് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. ഓക്കെ, ഓൾ ദ ബെസ്റ്റ്.
താങ്ക് യു.
My courage.